ko Puki Tapapa te maunga, ko Manukau te awa, ko Mangere 275 ahu. Ko Scott Toku whānau, ko Albert Toku ingoa, ma lolo tofu mo, ma langi mama, ni Sambula Vanaka, malo ni hao, namaste, kia ora, kia orana, warm Kiwi greetings, and welcome to Foundation North's annual public meeting. My name is Albert Scott. I'm one of the engagement advisors here at Foundation North, and it is my honor and privilege once again to be your MC for this annual public meeting. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, Albert, where do you get all of this melanin from? That's a great question. This beautiful shade of chocolate from Whitaker's comes directly from the beautiful islands of Samoa and Fiji. Thanks, Mum and Dad. Now before we start, what I thought we'd do is we'll take some time to stop, center ourselves, take a deep breath in and out, and allow me to take you through the proceedings for today. Our time will be opened by the kaumātua of the Foundation, Kevin Prime, after which we'll be heading over to the Orchard Shed Working Space out in Whangarei, where we'll be speaking to one of our whanaunga who will be responding on behalf of our attending visitors. We'll also have two short waiata that will be supporting both of our speakers. Now I can see we've got a huge contingent out up in Whangarei. That's amazing. If you guys can all give me a wave out there, out at the orchard. Yep, I can see you waving. Virtual hugs and kisses out to you all out there. Back to the program. After that, we'll be coming back down to Allendale House, our headquarters here in Tāmaki, Makaurau, where we'll be sharing our reporting year and doing some Q&A. Now, without further ado, let us start with the opening himene, ka waiata, after which we'll be going to Matua Kevin Prime, who will open us up with karakia and mihi. Kia ora.
Tātou. E te ata kaharawa, e te atua ora tonu. Ko mātou hoki uene auponga, e tāpai ake nei mui tuaroro, e whakamoimiti tonu ne tuingo. Ko koe ki pā whakahuihu mai a mātou kone, ko rātou hoki urungi te ipurani, me te iwi hoki roto i tēnei whare, me ngā iwi hoki ko hui roto i tēnā o ngā kāinga, me era hoki o roto tai Tokerau ko hono mai. Ko te inuit ki a koe pā, kia tuku e koe te māramatanga, kia mātou, i roto i tēnei noho, ki te whakaatu, ngā whakaatu rango tēnei ripota mo te hui a tau, kia tuku tonu e manaakitanga, kia mātou katoa mo te roa ngāke o tēnei noho. Manaakiti o noho ki tā mātou hea mana o alta e pā, ki te whakatutu ki ngā mahi runga i aia, ki te pīkau hoki wena taimahatanga me wērātu ngā kai kōrora muri atu i aia. Wēnei tonu ku ngā inui ki a koe pā, kia tata tonu koe kia mātou, kia piri tonu koe kia mātou, mo te roa ngāke o tēnei noho, i runga nei tingoa tāutama, te kai whakoro koe hukraiti. Āmen. Nā reira e ngā reo, e ngā mana, e ngā tini kārangaranga, e ngā rauranga tirama. Hono kia mōhia koutou i o te au te aka tika i taku whai kōrere i na nahira, angari no te ao ngā ke te rānei, ka pararahi taku i para, te pātere taku I para nā ko te whaikore hakarongo nei koutou ko haunua e puta ake nei tōku ngā kawi tēnei wā. Nā reira kia koutou hoki ko hono mai runga te epurangi, koutou hoki o roto o koutou wā kāinga, koutou hoki e noho mai rā I roto tai Tokerau me ene ngā iwi ko hui mai koni tēnei ata. Tēnā rā koutou. Nei rā te mihi anō ki o tātou ai tua maha, ko takāti ki toa te ārai. Ko tēnā hoki ko patu hohe pa tēnā, o roto ngā puhi, ko Jason Wynyard hoki tēnā, o roto Ngāti Manu, ko Pegi Henare tēnā o roto Ngāti Hine, ko Gwen Tepania, o roto hoki o Ngāti Kahu, pe tērā hoki ngā whaia hoki a Wikitoria, right, hui o roto Ngāti Parau, engari ke roto ke tō tērā ngā whare o Pouto he takoto maina. Nā reira kia koutou te hunga ma te haere. Haere o ki te pūtahitonga o rehua ki te huihui o ngā rangatira. Haere, hoki atu ki te iwi, hoki atu ki te kāinga, ki te wāhi tūturu mo tātou. Nā reira ngā ma te haere, haere, oti atu. He nuira tēnei mākui tēnei wā e tātou mā honua e mihi koutou ne kia koutou kato ko hono mai mā rungi te ipurangi me koutou hoku e roto o koutou wā kāinga huri no roto I tō tātou noho. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou.
O rangi nui ke Kia koutou katoa, ko te kaitia ki pūtea, o Tāmaki o tai Tokerau. No te roro, naku te roro, ka ora ai te iwi e. Kia kotahi te hoi, he mahi nā tahi, I roto I te tika, te pono me te aroha. He mana tuku iho, he mana tuturu. No te roro, naku te roro, ka ora ai te iwi e. No te roro, naku te roro, ka ora ai te iwi e.
Nā reire tā te mako o tuku atu te ākau kia koutou huri no roto I tō tātou noho. Tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou.
Karanga hau ki muri, karanga hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ki uita, kia mā taratara ki tai. E whakapūpū ake ngā ngaru o te ngarue. Ko au, te uri o ngā tokotori o manawa kotokoto, heru ana ki te matarai orehu. Ara tū tai aha ha. Aho kua mihi a ngā mihi, ka tautoko ana ngā kōrero o tō mātou kaimātua ko Kevin Prime, kia tukuna he mihi kia rātou kua uhi I te pō, no reira haere atu rā. Ki toku nei mōhiotanga I tēnei wāhi o te tai Tokerau, haere ki te tātou o te reinga, hoki atu ki tō matua tupuna, ara haere atu rā. Ko au, ko Paore e tū ake nei, ka tū ake au ki te mauri o tōku mahi ko Haikuna tai Tokerau. I ki ana ko tōku hoa ko tūkaha, ko ai te tangata tua whae kōrero ana, no te mea e noho ana te mauiwitanga o tō mātou hoa ko Rati, kaore wate ana Phoenix, ara ko ai te tangata whakamutunga e tū mai nei. So, engari, ka hoki ki ngā whakaaro tēnei rā, nō reira, tēnā rā tātou, e noho mai ana nei, tēnā koe e Kevin, e wāte ana te papa mō tātou, kōrerotanga o tēnei wā, ki te kaupapa o tēnei rā. Nō reira, ka reo e toro ana ngā kōrero, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Tōro, mai tō inga ki Ka whakaaro ki te tahi whakatauki tino rongonui o toku wāhi o te aroa. Ko tā te wānanga he maioha, ko tā te maere he tāpiri, ko tā te tāpire he manako, ko tā te wānanga hei tiaki, ko tā te taua hei aroha, ko tā te iwi hei whai. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. I just want to acknowledge Matua Kevin Prime for opening and blessing our space here today. Also want to acknowledge Paura Simon for responding on behalf of Manuhiri. The beautiful recordings of the Himene and Waiata for today's hui were performed by the staff here at Foundation North, led on guitar by Tai Tokerau's own Jimi Hendrix, Tukaha Milne. Kia ora Tukaha. I also want to thank Laura Cherrington and Nangi Musgrave from I Sign Deaf Aotearoa for interpreting our hui today. Also want to give a big shout out to our tech team who are making everything run smoothly. You guys are all amazing. Now I know the virtual space can be awkward at times, but we would love you to be as comfortable as possible. So if at any point you need to grab a cuppa, stretch your legs, or go to the loo, please feel free to do so. This is all being recorded and you'll be able to see it online afterwards. Now, if you do have any questions, we please ask you to put them into the chat. If you do have access to the chat function. If you don't have access to the chat function, if you're watching on YouTube, that's okay. You can email your questions into questions@foundationnorth.org.nz. That's questions@foundationnorth.org.nz, and it will put you guys in the queue for our question time at the end. We won't be able to answer any specific questions about any projects or applications that are in at the moment, but if you do have a burning desire to ask these types of questions, you can check out our website and get in contact with us there, and we'll get back to you in a timely manner. My favorite part. We want to whakawhanaunga with you. That's right. We want to whakawhanaunga with you. This is where all the extroverts get super excited and all the introverts start to go into the corner and go into a fetal position. I think the virtual space evens the playing field a little bit here. So what we'd love you guys to do is if you do have access to the chat, we'd love you to put your name, where you're from, and the organization you're with. That's your name, where you're from, and the organization you're with into the chat, just so we know who's here. We'll give you guys a couple of moments to put that in. And if you're up in Whangarei, up at the shared working space, you guys can continue to have those deep and meaningful conversations you guys have already been having that I've seen up on the screen already. As this is going through, you guys are probably wondering what this amazing taonga is over here. I'd like to introduce Tuapapa Takitaki, carved by master carver Wukiki Kingi. Its name was gifted by Matua Kevin. The name means long or long-standing foundation, signifying permanence and a sense of building of past and traveling towards the future. It really is a beautiful piece. And if you're ever at Allendale House, we do encourage you to come through and have a look. It truly is amazing. Cool, I think we've got everyone in. Now that we're all present, it's time to sit back, relax. We're going to enjoy a short video reporting on our year, also shining a light on the amazing work that's being done across the Rohe that's had support from our funding.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Walter Wells tōku ingoa, he uri o hau, no Ngāti Kuri, Te Rarawa, Ngāpui, me Ngāti Wai, e noho ana au ki whangarei te ringa Prawa. We are pleased to bring you this part of our hui from a community location whose mahi straddles Tāmaki and Te Tai Tokerau rohe. I'm here with Peter Tynan, CEO of Foundation North, and my fellow trustee and chair of our investment committee, Michelle Choi. Before my report, I want to mihi to two organisations helping to make this part of our hui possible. Firstly, to the staff here at Object Space Public Gallery in Greyland, who are allowing us to film our video reports in this wonderful space. Ngā mihi. Foundation North is supporting Object Space to develop new projects and programming with Māori, Pacific and migrant communities. Some of this mahi is already happening, and we are lucky to have as our backdrop these beautiful banners, which if you're local to Kaikoe, you will recognise. Through their Te Reo Māori on the Streets project, our friends at Ako Foundation worked with tamariki, schools, kora and artists to bring large-scale kupu Māori to life along the main streets of Kaikoe last year. Now some of that mahi is represented here at Object Space. Ka mau te wehi. Foundation North, as a community trust for Tāmaki Makaurau and Te Tai Tokerau, supports initiatives that will make a difference for our communities now and for generations to come. Our approach is shaped by our commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi and to the urgent need to respond to climate change. Our Te Tiriti and climate change kaupapa overlap, and they intertwine with our commitment to our priority communities and our 4 funding focus areas. As trustees, we are part of the Foundation's haerenga with Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We were honoured as a board to gather with our kaumātua, Kevin Prime, fellow trustees and leadership of other community trusts for a 3-day learning wānanga at Waitangi Weekend 2023. Manawa Nui Tia Te Tiriti o Waitangi was designed to deepen our understanding of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We explored together ways that community trusts can give effect to Te Tiriti across our granting, our governance and our investment activities. Foundation North recognises that the climate emergency is a growing risk to our communities and our planet. Cyclone Gabrielle in February acts as a stark reminder of the challenges communities across Aotearoa face and the need for innovative community-led responses. We have identified 4 levers around which we take climate action: our investments, our granting, our internal operations, and our collective actions with other funders and partners. We recognise that climate action is above all a people issue, requiring systems innovation, the policies, behaviours, resource flows, power and mindsets that ultimately make up how we live and thrive. In closing, I would like to thank my fellow trustees for their dedication and passion for our communities. Our reporting year began with a generous granting budget. This was buoyed by record investment returns over previous years and included an allocation for community facilities and amenities. With our eyes on the horizon, we have continued to fund to our strategy to enhance lives, remaining mindful of the changing realities that affect us all. Our continuing theme of navigating together honours the mahi of our wider community of grantees and partners as we move forward together. I would now like to hand over to the Chair of our Investment Committee, Michelle Choi, who will reflect on the year from an investment perspective.
Kia ora, Walter. Thank you so much for your introduction. Foundation North is a long-term sustainable investor. Our portfolio is well diversified. It is invested across many different types of assets and across multiple geographies. This serves Foundation North's in perpetuity mandate very well. Our portfolio is designed to be resilient and withstand financial shocks. It is not, however, immune to the short-term global market's ups and downs like we've seen in the last 12 months. The value of our putea at the end of the 2023 financial year was slightly above 1.6 billion New Zealand dollars. This means a loss of 3.2% compared to the start of the year. This is the first loss we've seen since the 2008 global financial crisis, and that was 15 years ago. We see last year's result as a short-term glitch, but we have every confidence that our portfolio is well positioned to continue our long-term growth. Alongside a well thought out investment strategy is the Foundation's very robust reserving policy. This means that we maintain a financial buffer that allows us to maintain business as usual, even when our investment portfolio is not doing as well as we thought it would over a short period of time. Most importantly, we are able to maintain our granting programs broadly in line with the last few years. The Foundation has also been active in extending our investing for good by launching an impact investment fund, Te Pai Ki Te Rangi. It's managed by Soul Capital based in Auckland and is actively seeking investment opportunities that are purposeful and are aligned with our focus areas. This fund is a great complement to our granting programs. I now hand you over to our CEO, Peter Tynan, for his report on the Foundation's activities over the last year.
Thank you, Michelle. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko mangawhau te manga, ko waitamata te moana, ko Tāmaki Makaurau tika inga, ko Peter Tynan tuku ingoa. Looking back, it has been one of the most substantial granting years in the Foundation's history. Trustees approved a record $71 million in funding to our communities over the last year. This included major grants for community facilities and amenities, which occurs every 2 years. Working together with others was a feature of our year. We partnered with Creative New Zealand on the Asian Artists Fund and with the Ministry of Pacific Peoples on the Pacific Youth Future Makers Initiative. Both of these partnerships are examples of how philanthropy can innovate using participatory funding pathways. These programs are designed and rolled out by those in the community for their community. We joined with others to rapidly provide relief following major flooding and extreme weather events, including Cyclone Gabrielle, that had such a significant impact on many in our region. This year we have seen much disruption, but not interruption, to our mahi. We've been able to quickly respond where needed and made changes to our processes to service our communities better. We continue humbly to take steps to improve, informed by feedback via real-time surveys, our engagement team, and our monitoring, evaluation, and learning activities. Change is a permanent part of our community landscape. We will adapt and draw inspiration from the many groups we work with, and together discover new ways to reach our goals. Our annual report highlights some of the grants approved across our 4 focus areas. I encourage you to grab a cuppa and take a look around the digital report. Can I take this opportunity to thank all of the Foundation North staff and trustees for their commitment and dedication this year. It has been a historic one. To end, I mahi to all the organisations who have shared the stories behind some of these grants, and Cleaning Object Space, who very kindly have hosted us here for this part of our hui. Ngā mihi.
Awesome, amazing video, truly inspirational mahi going on. It's now my pleasure to briefly introduce to you our Q&A panel for today. The always knowledgeable chair of the Board of Trustees, Walter Wells, the super savvy Investment Committee Chair, Michelle Choi, Commander-in-Chief of Operations, CEO Peter Tynan, and the always graceful Audrey McLaren, Head of Funding. They are here to help us answer any questions that have come in or have come through the chat. Walter, it's with the greatest pleasure that I hand our people over to you.
Oh, ka pai. Kia ora, Albert, and thank you for that most generous introduction. I'd love to take you with me around all my other hui. That'd be quite nice. But to our whānau who are online joining the live stream, to our whānau who are at location in Whangarei, tēnā koutou to you all. Ngā mihi for all your mahi that you do and lead and champion on behalf of your communities. It's really just a privilege for us to be able to support and enable the kaupapa that you lead on behalf of your whānau and your communities. So without further ado, as has been mentioned, you can post questions in the chat facility through the live stream or send in emails. We probably won't have time to get through all of them, but I'm sure our team who are monitoring the questions coming through will either respond directly or ensure you get a response in due course. So maybe if I move to the panel and picking up on some of the findings through the annual report. If I go to you, Michelle, the annual report showed a negative return. and is granting safe if this repeats this year?
Kia ora, thank you, Walter. I have to say the last 12, 24 months have been quite challenging. As we all know, we came through COVID, and we had the Russia and Ukraine conflict, and currently we have lots happening in the Middle East. We have inflation, so there's a lot of uncertainties in the market. So to be honest, I haven't got a crystal ball. I really don't know what's going to happen. But on the other hand, our put here is designed to last a very long term. So the investments are very diverse, and we do believe that it can wear through short-term ups and downs. And like any good household, we put aside money for a rainy day. So we have a very robust reserving policy, and also we spend what we can afford. So with the two policies in hand, I do believe that over the next couple of years we should be able to maintain the granting program broadly in line with the previous couple of years.
Kapai, thanks for that, Michelle. Hopefully that provides confidence to our grantee organisations that the way that the investment portfolio is managed, that we will be able to continue to fund in the coming years. So perhaps as a climate change related question here, if I take this one to you, Peter, and building on what Michelle's just mentioned about the geopolitical space and the weather events that have been occurring over the past year. So communities were really affected by the weather events. The impact of those are still clearly visible across communities. So the question I have is, what is Foundation North doing to respond to the impacts of climate change?
Kia ora, thank you, Walter. Yeah, I think the first thing is extreme weather events like we've had in the past 24 months are evidence enough that climate change is real. And our first response has been during those events to be able to provide rapid funding to community groups that can really assist at times of need. So I think that's our first forays to say we can respond in a rapid way with granting during those periods. The second thing is we do have a four area plan of how to deal with climate change, which starts with our investment portfolio. So at the moment we're going through a transition to a low carbon portfolio, and through the Tāmaki Fund we're also searching for opportunities where we can enter that regenerative environmental space with our investments. So the first go at it is really to try our investment portfolio to a climate neutral or better still zero position. After that, we're looking at our granting, so actively searching for opportunities for grantee groups that can either be in the regenerative environment space or are working to make communities more resilient in terms of actually being better prepared for climate change. Then we move to our own internal operations. How do we make those carbon neutral? And we're looking across a broad spectrum of things, including the Allendale building, including whether or not we can have more in terms of electric vehicles and try and contribute to that reduction in carbon emissions. And then lastly is how can we actually work with others to collaborate, advocate for faster and quicker responses to this. Much of that is around the other community trusts. So we're one of 12 community trusts. We've signed a funders pledge which commits us and them to doing more with climate change over the coming years. So that's how we've responded to date. I agree with you, it is the issue of our time and the issue for generations to come. And we also think that it's super important to tie that in with our commitment to Te Tiriti Waitangi and work with the UN Hapu groups that are willing to on the same types of issues in Te Taiao. So it's a big issue, and we're trying to do our part to make sure that we can actually build resilient communities before it affects them.
Kapai, thanks, Peter. And just picking up on a point you raised around the investment portfolio and our commitment to Te Tiriti, I do have a question here which relates to responsible investment. And maybe if I come back to you, Michelle, as a follow-up and response is, can Foundation North use the investment portfolio to address climate change, and how is it being done?
Kia ora, Walter. I think the first thing is that the trustees do recognise that every single investment we make makes an impact. Okay. So firstly, what we do is that from the governance perspective, we have a set of responsible investment policy, and we work with investment managers to implement those policies. Now, how do we do that, and how do we sort of manage the impact of our investment portfolio? There are many different ways of doing that. From one end, we can say we minimize harm, which is where we do not invest in certain types of companies, for example, those who make weapons. Or the other end of the scale, where we go out actively seeking investments that have positive impact on the community, on the environment, for example. Te Paiki Te Rangi is an example of how we're doing it. Okay. And come to Te Tiriti commitment. To be honest, in that area, we are still working out how best to honour our commitments through investment. So we've started on this journey and working with lots of different stakeholders to just try and understand how do we do it and what can be done. So this is an active discussion around the board table, as you know, Walter. And then firstly, we looked at our governance and to make sure that we have the right input around the board table. And also that we will be looking forward to using our voice, using advocacy to raise this with the investment industry.
Fine. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate the response. Maybe just picking up on, while we're still talking about investments and maybe taking it to a granting level and coming back to that question around is granting still safe in that context? Maybe a question for you, Audrey. It's a two-part question that's come through. The first part is, why did funding for communities jump from mid 50 million to 70 million? And the second part is, will funding stay the same in this year and in the future?
Kia ora whānau for the question. Yes, it was a big jump in our funding from mid-50s to 70 million in the last financial year. The reason for that is, Michelle mentioned we have a reserving policy. That reserving policy determines our allocation of funding for each year. In 22-23, trustees were able to give us an additional allocation of 15 million, hence taking us up to 70 million. The second part of that question was about, is the grants budget safe for the foreseeable future? And as Michelle mentioned, it looks as though we will be. Though we don't have a crystal ball, it looks as though things will remain stable. Our current grants budget is about 55 million, and I think we can expect to see that continue for another 2 to 3 years. So, kia ora, thank you for that question.
Thank you, Audrey. And just in terms of grantee organisations and how conflicts are managed, Peter, I have a question here that refers to two conflicts in trustees' relationships with grantees, and that some trustees, as I see in the list of grantees, that some trustees are also part of the grantee organisations, and the question, I guess, was how can that be fair?
Very good question. So maybe I could start with how trustees are appointed. So part of the setup of all the community trusts was all of the trustees are actually appointed through the Department of Internal Affairs by the Minister of Finance. So in actual fact, we do a skills matrix which outlines the skills we need on the board, and then we put it back to the Department of Internal Affairs and the Minister, the types of skills we'd like on the board, and then they make those appointments on our behalf. And around about a quarter of the trustees each year put up for reappointment, and generally we've been lucky that for the past few years we've had a very stable trustee group. Maybe on the conflict side, it's inevitable. New Zealand is a very small village. Aotearoa is a small place, and even though we think we can avoid the conflicts, we can't. So conflicts are inevitable. So therefore it becomes, what do you do to manage those conflicts when they arise? We do that through our governance at the board table with a policy, and that at each meeting trustees are asked to disclose both conflicts they may have directly with the agenda of the day, but certainly on an ongoing basis with community groups. Pardon me. From that oversight, that governance, we then determine whether or not the conflicts are in a commercial way, there's a financial way that they're involved, or other areas of influence, and each trustee is then disclosing and either taking part in discussions or actually exiting the room when we have discussions on those applications. So it's very closely managed, and each of the trustees are fully aware of their responsibilities. So we manage it through a conflicts policy, and then those trustees don't take part in either discussions nor decisions that affect groups that they have conflicts with. So it's pretty closely managed, and in my time here, I think it's what I've witnessed is a very honest group that manage that very well. So that's how it's done today.
Kapa. Thanks, Peter. And thanks for the thorough response. That's a really good question from our whānau in relation to conflict management, and I think the board does a very good job in doing that responsibly. Next question we have, and I'll probably give this one for you, Audrey, and it's around, it's a granting question around delegation of decision making and investment partnering. So the question is, thinking about how communities can share power with funders, are programs like Pacific Waymakers and Asian Artists Fund that Foundation also supported going to continue?
Address whānau out there. Participatory grant making, of which Asian Arts Fund and Pacific Waymakers are both variations of participatory grant making. We mentioned that a little bit earlier in the videos. They're really important programs that are being developed at Foundation North in partnership with community. Part of it is about devolving decision making to community, both in terms of the design of the programs, the structure of the programs, inviting community to come and participate, and in the recommendations for funding. Community do all of those things. Now we're learning to do it well with community. We've had 3 iterations of Pacific Waymakers, of which you would have seen Albert leading those out, and we've had 2 iterations of Asian Arts Fund. We're designing a 3rd one now with the Asian artists community. We're also looking at extending participatory grant making into Tokerau with a rangatahi focused environment participatory grant making program up there. So in short, we will continue to work in this way. How it will shape up over time, it will be led by and designed by community. So I think you can be sure that we will continue to put resources, effort towards supporting community to design these things that work for them. As to the piece about decision making, we have our trustees have an act under which they must abide, and we work with community in order to enable community to recommend to us how to make the grants funding decisions, and then that is ratified here either through delegation or through our trustees. Kia ora.
Kapai, thank you, Audrey. So I would encourage any of our rōpū out there who might have some really smart ideas around how funding decisions could potentially be delegated, or partnership opportunities to engage with our team. And you've got many of our engagement team there in Whangarei to have further discussions around that, and for others online to make contact with our office, and they will be more than willing to enter into discussions around what those potential design opportunities could look like. Just on that, I am conscious that you all are short on the commodity of time. So in the interest of time, any other questions that we haven't been able to get to, the team will either respond to you directly or ensure you get a response in due course. So on that note, thank you all for your attention and your attendance. We greatly appreciate it. And I'll hand it back to the wonderful Albert.
Thank you, Walter. As they say, all good things must come to an end. That brings our hui to a close. I just want to once again thank my toa Kevin Prime and Paula Simon, to our fabulous sign language interpreters, to Walter, Michelle, and Peter for your reports. A huge mihi to everyone that's online, and a huge shout out to everyone that's at the orchard. You guys are all amazing out there. Our final himene is Wairua Tapu, after which Matua Kevin Prime will close us in karakia. Whawhitai tēnei lava, ahi ahi marie, kia pai tērā.
Wairua tapu tau mai rā. Wairua tapu mai runga. Uhia mai nā taonga pai. O mai tō aroha. Wahia kia tika. Akona mai rā kia uki te pai. Oroia kia mautolu rā. Mohau te tino kolia. Wairua tapu tau mai rā. Wairua tapu tau mai rā. Wairua tapu tau mai rā.
Tokerau e te atu ātawhai. E tuku tanu mātou tēnei reo whakawhetai whakamoimiti ki a koe pā mō ngā tini manaakitanga I uhia mai e koe kuri a mātou I tēnei noho a mātou ki te haka atu te ripo tātou. Ko te ino te ki a koe kia manaakiti anu koe ngā kai haka haere, ngā āpi hoki ki te whakatutuki, te kaupapa I mui a rātou I pīkau tonu ngā ahuatanga e pāna ki tēnei kaitioki pūtea mō tai Tokerau, mō Tāmaki. Ko e nei tonu ngā inoi kia manaakiti anu koe tēnei o mātou. E wehe tūni ngā kāinga, e wehe tūni ngā tūutanga. Ko te ino ki tēnei kia koe pāmau ne whakamana mai. I runga ni tingoa tāutama te kai whakoro koe Ukraiti. Āmen. Kia ora tātou.